Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Russ, it's 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks since the blizzard, and there is no snow on the ground.
That's awesome.
It's all gone. Oh no, we just have the damage that occurred, like lots of trees destroyed and everything, but all the snow is gone. It's bizarre. But anyway, Timothy in the chat just said Tua is out.
We knew that.
Like we expected the guy to play when he was concussed 3 times.
Yeah, we knew that.
Especially the crap storm that the Dolphins took for playing him before and forcing him back. There was no way they were going to do that. But anyway, Russ, start us off the pre-show.
So an interesting development in the WWE.
Oh, yeah.
So they've had a shakeup, and Stephanie McMahon has stepped down, and Vince McMahon is out of retirement and back in, presumably to boost up the stock price so they could all sell and make a lot of money. Now, in the past couple of days, there was some talk that maybe they sold to a Saudi group, and that's why Stephanie McMahon stepped down. But it doesn't seem to be the case, or they're delaying that as being the truth. Either way, I've talked to some wrestling people that I know, actually a guy who used to be a manager and used to be a part of it, and we're both pretty sure that after they load up for this next couple of events with talent, they'll have them on short-term contracts. The minute they sell, they're probably going to be in trouble. Like, because, then Vince will be gone again. And Vince has not been good in years. Like, let's just point that out. Like, he used to be the lifeblood for them, but he's no longer. And AEW, who is the rival group, they could really take over at that point, because I would feel bad for the new owners, because I don't think you'll ever be able to recapture what the WWE had. And I think now they're just sort of like a fading brand.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, I was a big wrestling fan when I was a kid. Maybe in my 20s, I came back to when The Rock and Triple H broke in, and it was really interesting and exciting. I haven't been involved and interested in it for over a decade. Every once in a while, I'll flip through the channels and see it on TV, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? It's just like, nah, it's past me. So if it does get sold to the Saudis or whatever the hell happens, I mean, it's not going to impact me like it would have 20 years ago. I don't think it has much of a imprint on things as it did a while back.
It still gets ratings, though.
It still gets ratings, but I just don't think it's as impactful as it was.
Yeah, I'm very limited in my wrestling experiences. When I was a kid, my grandmother liked it, and this was the era of Bobo Brazil and the Sheik and Lord Layton and Leaping Larry Shane, who went underneath the mat and then come out the other side, and everyone was always shocked when it happened, even though he did it every time. So the biggest thing about this is and this is the modern world now, where everybody says things like 70s, the new 60 and all that kind of stuff. But Vince McMahon is 77 years old.
Yeah,
just the idea that he's still involved. He clearly doesn't need the money or the job or anything else. But it's interesting that that a Saudi group would be interested in buying. Like, what could they possibly know about?
Well, the WWE has been going there for the last 3 or 4 years, taking ridiculous money from them to kind of keep them afloat. And so I do think that's part of it, Kev, because they've been having their matches. The Saudis basically tell them who they want to wrestle and then pay for it. Like, that's how it's been going. And to be honest, I'll still watch wrestling. I won't watch any of the stuff that the Saudis are involved in. I just won't, from a lot of different standpoints. But Corinne is right. It is a male soap opera, and that is true, because back in the day, as a young kid, I would watch General Hospital with my mother, which I watched really through my 30s, and then sort of abandoned it. And this is still sort of like my soap opera. She's right about that when I turn it on.
Well, I mean, that does the connection too, the fact that Vince McMahon's been around for so long, just like my grandmother used to watch As the World Turns, and some of those characters lasted 4 decades.
Years.
Yeah. So, and McMahon has lasted a long time. He's like the king of the soap opera. So
he is. It's a family business. He's a billionaire. The business is worth a lot, but the thing is, they they never unionized, so obviously that's been a big deal over the years. Travel costs a lot, wrestlers a lot of money. They have to pay for their own medical, like all that stuff. They do pay the best out of everybody, but they also will cut you quickly when they need to turn a profit. So, that's why a lot of people are going to the AEW. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I can guarantee you for the next 3 months, 4 months, the WWE will be all over the place in the news. They will probably spend every last dime signing everybody they can to get record numbers so they can get a big sale.
Just because I saw literally about 2 minutes of it, so I can't make a widespread analysis of it. But I worked at a movie theater. I love movies, and I always liked the award shows. They were always a spectacle and something. I always rooted for my favorite actors or actresses to win Oscars, and of course, that sort of bled into sort of the Golden Globes, which is like not even the it's a poor man. It's not the Oscars, but and it's tainted a little bit because there's always been rumors of the Golden Globes sort of being a pay for play type of thing where the studios will buy an award for somebody, but that the Hollywood Foreign Press is a little more pliable. But anyway, after a couple years off for some scandalous reasons, the Golden Globes came back last night, and I have to say, I've never seen a more disorganized and dysfunctional award show in my life. I mean, I turned it on. I watched a couple awards. Most of the big people weren't there. Like Kevin Costner won for Yellowstone, and he made a video because of the flooding in California that he couldn't make.
It's pretty bad.
And that's pretty bad. And that's justified. But like Tom Cruise wasn't there, and other people were not there. And it just seemed like a lot of people stayed away, maybe because of the scandal. But it was really weird. Russ, you know how they usually have like a band that will do the music? They had a very attractive lady playing the piano at the side of the stage. And they signaled her after how many seconds to start playing when they wanted the person to get off stage. And the one person said, "Shut up, please." And she stopped.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't watch it. The only thing I can come up with is I think agents said, "Don't go to this show this year based on what happened last year, just in case." That's what it sounds like to me. And with Costner, it's legit. There is horrible flooding going on. I posted a video of it. It's really bad.
A lot happened in the 2 minutes you watched, Mike.
Well, after the 2 minutes, I was checking in on social media, so I saw the criticism.
I was going to say, you start out by telling us you only watched 2 minutes, and then you gave 10 minutes of information about it.
I
can pack a lot into 2 minutes.
I do want to mention this. While they do need the rain in California, understand I do live with a scientist that understands water very well, and I will tell you this. When you get rushing water like that, it doesn't get saved because it gets mixed in with the runoff. I saw like a gas station got buried under. A lot of it gets contaminated. A lot of it is not useful. So, it's like you do want rain, but you don't want it like that.
I love these people who say, well, there's a drought in Arizona, so can't they just funnel the water that's in California to Arizona? Okay, there's an aqueduct in place that goes right from LA to Phoenix, so that'll work for you. All right, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, back in the basement where I belong. So
back in the saddle again. And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we're at the halfway mark, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to touch on this because I don't think it's going to affect tonight's games because teams usually travel the night before if there's unless they're playing back-to-back games. But this morning, the FAA shut down like basically the entire all flights because their computer system had either crashed or there was some sort of issue with that. So now apparently it was corrected and now the flights are going on, but that could affect teams. I mean, teams might be there already for tonight's games, but for Thursday's games, they might be traveling either tonight or tomorrow morning and getting there. So there could be some postponements based on the travel situation. So
I would think maybe the closer teams will take buses. I mean,
Well, it's ironic you say that. Toronto plays Detroit. They're playing against Nashville tonight, and then they play at Little Caesars tomorrow, Kev. And it's what, a 4.5 hour bus ride? If it would be
probably 5 and change. But
so that's it's very possible that they would if the situation is ongoing, they could take a bus to Detroit.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that's going to cause them any issues because most of them fly into, the airports that, mostly have charters, and like the Red Wings don't fly out of, the big airport here. They fly out of a, kind of a smaller airport not far away. So I don't know. I'd be shocked if there was any, repercussions out of all this. I think they'll figure that out.
Probably. I mean, from the reports I saw this morning, this was the first time that they had shut down like all flights since 9/11. So it was something on
That's a big deal. Yeah.
That's a big deal. But
it is. But back in the old days when they used to fly commercial, it would have been. But in charters and things, I don't know. Unless it's, I guess it could be just the fact that they don't want that many planes in the air. So
true.
Yeah. So maybe that could cause some problems.
So, looking at some of the games from last night, Russ, and the odd nature of the schedule. The Sabers played 3 games in 4 nights at home, which is unusual. Well, one of them was a rescheduled game because of the first blizzard that we had in November. And everybody around Buffalo was extremely excited at the fact that they beat Minnesota in overtime, an exciting 6-5 victory, and then they followed it up with a bad loss to Philadelphia, and now another loss to Seattle. And I'm not taking anything away from Seattle, and we can talk about them in a minute, but it's just the inconsistent nature of a young team where, they're 4 points out of a playoff spot and they had games in hand. Well, they just had used 2 games in hands and they lost both of them.
Yeah, I mean, but allow me to point out the obvious, and this goes for Eric Comrie too, because he's not a hardened NHL veteran goalie.
Right.
If they're not scoring their usual 4 goals, they're not going to win the same amount of games because they don't have goaltenders that can hold teams to 2 and under on a regular basis. So, again, they're not going to keep up that scoring of 4.5 goals a game the whole year. If they did, it almost wouldn't matter who was in net because they can make mistakes and they can cover up for them. But it's harder to cover up for them when, you're not doing that.
I mean, Kev, I've been extremely impressed with the progress that the Sabres have made in a short time. And, the sort of coming of Tage Thompson to being at a level of being a number 1 center has really helped. And they have a lot of good young players, and Dahlin has played well, and Power is a good young player. But I continue to say that, the goaltending is sort of, and I'm not trying to be insulting, but I think Comrie is a backup and Luukkonen is not established. It's almost like 4A level. It's not NHL level.
Yeah, but I don't think they really thought that this was their year to make the playoffs, and I think that probably speaks to, why they don't have goaltending and the fact that I didn't think they had a lot of options. I don't think they need a bridge goalie. I think they need to find kind of a long-term solution, and that really wasn't available to them last summer. At least I didn't think it was. For that reason, but I think they're a little surprised at how well they've played, and and it goes, as you mentioned, it goes beyond Thompson. I mean, Dylan Cousins has stepped up, and their defense has really been impressive, and just in terms of their ability to move the puck. I mean, that's kind of what they're all about. And Owen Power has yet to scratch the surface. I don't even think he's been exceptional, but you could see it in him. When you watch his games, you can just see, my gosh, when he gets this figured out, the force, and Dahlin has been incredible.
Russ, it's sort of with Power. It's sort of been reminiscent of Dahlin at 18 years old when he plays his first season. He's tall, but he's not, he's sort of gangly. He's not really filled out. He's got a lot of talent. He's got speed. He's got a shot, but it's not all there. And now a couple years later, you see what's all there. Like Joe Yerdon told us, it was a circuitous route to get to where Dahlin is, but now he's like, I think he's leading the NHL or tied for the lead with Carlson for most goals by a defenseman. I think he has 13. Power is sort of like showing what Dahlin did in his first year. It's going to take time, but the tools are there, and just he has to learn how to put it all together and get in shape.
Yeah, the difference in the two is I actually think Power will get to what he's going to be a little quicker because of his mental game. I think is better. Dahlin is obviously way more talented offensively. Power has the ability to score, go some goals, and definitely put up points, and eliminate time and space and do all those things you need to do. I think he will be better defensively quicker than Dahlin was, and there won't be as much pressure on Power because they're not expecting big offensive numbers out of him right away. And since Dahlin is doing that, it definitely takes the pressure off. So I actually think it's a good situation for Power right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could really make a case that the Buffalo Sabres have been one of the biggest surprises at the midway point, just for the fact that, who thought they were going to lead the league in goals? They've just been really, really impressive. And on the other side of that, the thing that I don't know where they are now, but I remember looking about a week ago, and the other surprising on the other end is who would guess that the Colorado Avalanche would be 23rd in goal scoring?
Right.
I mean, obviously the injuries have played a big role in that, but I think there are other reasons as well.
The injuries have just absolutely devastated them. I mean, that it's and I know that it's the halfway mark, and there's a little bit of a concern that they're where they are right now, which is 20-16-3, 43 points. Yeah, their goal differential is +1.
Yeah,
that's not.
But even beyond the injuries, like Nathan McKinnon only had 8 goals when he was injured, and you just expect more goals from him. And the trade of Kadri. I've talked to a few people out there about this, and they knew that they were going to miss him, but they're really shocked about how different their team is without him. He just the way he plays. There's a you just never know what you're going to get with him, and in a good way. You know what I mean? Like he can step up and have an amazing offensive game. He can get in the middle of things and create tension like Brad Marchand does in Boston as well. So I think even though they knew it was going to change their team, like I would argue that it's been even more than they thought it would.
Now I see, in scanning through some of the game, and I watched some of them last night when I wasn't watching the Golden Globes. The Red Wings beat Winnipeg 7-5, which is unusual since Hellebuck has been one of the best goalies in the league. But the Red Wings bust out with 7 goals. Kev, I mean, the Red Wings have a lot of offensive talent, but I'm a little surprised at that output against one of the leagues.
Well, and they scored only 4 goals in the previous 3 games, and they lost them all. They're having trouble on their special teams. Their 5-on-5 play hadn't been very good. But just prior to that, they had another sort of mini goal explosion, and that was the 3rd time this season that they did score 7 goals. So as you said, there's talent there, potential talent as well. And big night for Moritz Seider, and I thought that was important because he isn't on the same point pace as he was on last year. And all of a sudden he got 4 assists last night, and he's moved closer to that. His plus minus also has not been reflective of how well he's played. And what's interesting, and we know this, but I think sometimes the fan base forgets that just as we understand that as Seider goes, so goes the Red Wings. But the reverse is also true. As the Red Wings go, so goes Seider, because he plays against all the top players on the opposition. So when they're sloppy and making mistakes and the goalie's off, Seider pays the price for that. And I think that's what's happened to him this year. In fact, Derek Lalonde, the coach, has said more than once that he feels like even though Cider's still, I believe, at like -10 or -11 or somewhere in that range, that's not really reflective how, like, they think he's really had a good season. And just because they've been really inconsistent defensively, and they've been sloppy, and they've had great goaltending, but they've also had nights when it was just miserable.
Russ, with the New York teams, we're going to do an abbreviated show here, so we'll probably end in about 5 to 10 minutes. With the New York-based teams, the Rangers win in a shootout over Minnesota. I saw some comments about Ryan Reeves where he said that he didn't request a trade, but all the stuff.
Whatever, like he just wants to create controversy,
right? But this in this game, the Wild have been in a couple pretty wild games the last few days. I didn't see a lot of this ones, but I do see that Zuccarello scores against his former team, and Shesterkin with the victory. What were your impressions on this one?
Yeah, that was a game that went back and forth. The Rangers had to come back from a 2-goal deficit. They did. Then they traded. It was a good goaltending battle actually between Shesterkin and Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury still has it. I mean, he could still really make it hard on a team. So this was a really good effort. I'll tell you, I dug a little bit into the Islander game too because
that was a
shootout. Okay, yeah. You're losing the shootout. Jason Robertson almost single-handedly beats him, right? Because he scored a goal and then he gets the shootout winner. The interesting thing about the Islanders is this. We always harp on their scoring. Here's another thing, though. Since 2019-20, they are 9-0-15 in the shootout. 0-3 this year in the shootout. Last year, the last couple of years, it didn't matter as much if they didn't get the shootout points because they were getting a lot of points. But right now, they're getting into more shootouts than they probably have bargained for because they're playing this ultra defensive game and don't really have the horses to win the shootouts either. And it just shows they're not a good shootout team. The other controversy is, again, with Ratu not playing a lot of minutes. There's a lot of controversy online. The only thing I can tell you is this. When you play young players that you want to develop at the NHL level, playing them 8 minutes a game does not develop them. Like, that's just a guarantee. That's been proven over time. But, again, if the Islanders are going to do that, that's fine. But, again, they're going to have to pay attention to their shootout now because they're hemorrhaging some points there that could really cost them at the end of the year. And
you can translate that, what you just said about Ratu, to Yuri Slafkovsky with the Canadiens, who has 10 Kev, he has 10 points right now. There was a lot of talk at the beginning of the year. Start him out in Laval. Let him get acclimated to North America. Let him play a month down there, and then call him up. Instead, they put him in there opening night. They play him third line. He's not really, you can't say he's not developing, but he's been a target for 3 or 4 big hits, and he's a bigger kid.
Yeah,
I don't know whether the Canadians are doing right by him by what they're doing. Now there's talk to send him to the American Hockey League, but not that it's too late, but it's like you're just sort of falling back on that instead of having a plan.
Yeah, but the problem is not one size fits all for prospects, and you've got to there's certain givens for development, but it's really dependent on who the player is. And I think they had a hard read on him. Like, I don't know that they really had a good sense of whether he was going to be ready or not. And for that reason, I think they've missed on that. I think you tend with a bigger player to think they're going to be more ready,
right,
to play. And then invariably, it seems to me that whether you're a rookie or not, if you're big, people will hit you. So, but
the one thing I'll say about Ratu, they didn't play him last night, but he is a bigger guy. So if you hit him, he'll hit you back. Like, he's actually got a pro body.
I almost think, Kev, that the Canadians got fooled by what Slavkovsky did in the Olympics, where he scored 7 goals in
Right.
7 games, and they said, "Oh, he's right." But whereas these Olympics are not those past Olympics were not the typical Olympics. When you had like Matthew Nyes and Nick Aberzees playing for Team USA, it wasn't the same type of tournament. So I think they miscalculated there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to talk about last night, and nobody paid attention to it because all the Tampa Bay Lightning just beat the Columbus Blue Jackets, and what does that really matter? But afterward, I was really struck by a quote from John Cooper. He said, the guys like scoring goals. They won 6-3. He said the guys like scoring goals. We like scoring goals, but we got away with giving up 3 goals. And after he said that, I was thinking to myself, this is why the Tampa Bay Lightning have won 11 playoff series in the last 3 years. Is that's just the way that John Cooper thinks. Like, even though they beat a weak team, instead of seeing, well, we got 6 goals, he saw, boy, we gave up 3 goals against a bad team, and if we want to be successful, we can't be doing that. So I think I've been really impressed by Tampa Bay this season. Like Braden Point has a goal in 9 consecutive home games. Only Connor McDavid has done that this season. Stamkos picked up 2 more assists last night, set a new franchise record for 300 assists at home for a franchise. And they've won 8 straight home games now. And, you got to make hay. You got to make hay at home. And they're doing that. And, the Bruins have been a much better team. They're the team to beat. But, I think what the Lightning are saying just is, hey, look, we're here. You're still going to have to beat us. We may not be the same team we were, but they're still dangerous. They're still a very dangerous team.
For Tampa, this is an 82-game preseason. They know they're making the playoffs, and they know they have the veteran experience and the Stanley Cup pedigree that they will be ready when the time comes. And, of course, they're going to, unless something dramatically changes in the Atlantic, they're going to play Toronto in the first round. And, again, Toronto will probably say that is the most difficult first-round matchup of any first-round matchup in the NHL. And the funny thing is, Kev, the way things are sounding, if they lose in the first round again, there's going to be dramatic changes in Toronto. And, you have to just say it's bad luck that they're coming up against Tampa 2 years in a row, and they came up against Boston 2 years in a row. But at a certain point, you have to get past those teams. Yeah,
you do. Although, it is just unfortunate that they're in, that situation. And, Tampa Bay is not going to be there forever. The Maple Leafs will outlast them just based on the ages of their premium players.
Right.
But it is, that's going to be, to me, that's a 60-40 playoff series. I think Toronto's played better this season, but not by enough that where they'd be an overwhelming favorite. Like you don't think, well, Tampa Bay can't beat Toronto. Far from it. It's close to a toss-up.
Yeah, I honestly, I think with the psychological part of it, I think it's a 50-50 matchup. But then when it gets down to it, it's like if you're going to bet, and you bet the team that has, that's been to 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row and has won 2 Stanley Cups. I don't care if it was in the bubble or not. They're 2-time Stanley Cup champions. Just to finish off here, because there's 4 games on the schedule tonight. One of them, as I mentioned, Nashville and Toronto, and Austin Matthews is missing his first game of the season. Sheldon Keefe was not specific in terms of the extent of the injury. It doesn't sound like it's anything lengthy. In fact, he might play against Detroit tomorrow night, so it's a day-to-day thing, and he was on the ice at Scotiabank Arena for an optional skate, but he is not playing tonight. And Bobby McMahon, who they called up from the American Hockey League, who was AHL Player of the Week, will make his NHL debut in place of Matthews in the lineup. So there's that game and 3 others, and we'll discuss them tomorrow on the Buzzcast when Eklund is back. And Russ had to go to the dentist, so he will be back tomorrow as well. For the departed Russ Cohen and for Kevin Allen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.